So there's a video of a bowler. I think his name was Pete Weber, but I might have that completely wrong. Probably 9 or 10 years ago now. Maybe 8 years ago. And he was the bad boy of PBA.
The Pro Bowling Association?
Yes. And he bowled a strike to win the championship. And he went up to the crowd and he yelled, "Who do you think you are? I am." And it made no sense.
Have you ever said that to anyone?
The amount of times that I would go up to guys in the dugout of our high school baseball games after I had a good inning pitching and facetiously yell at them, "Who do you think you are? I am." You could call up any of them and they would tell you that I used to do it all the time. It's one of the great references in ESPN Sunday afternoons when there's no football on.
I mean, to be like tagged as the bad boy of
That's what I'm
the
saying.
Pro Bowling Association.
Yeah, I'm gonna find his look so that you can see and maybe the Gimmies can see
The Gimme.
exactly what this guy looked like.
Jeremy Taché. He does it for the fans.
Who do you think you are? I am. Google. Yeah, Pete Weber. I was right. Here you go.
I love it. It's like he's as menacing as I suspected him to be, and it's not that menacing.
He used to wear sunglasses while he bowled sometimes.
But what about his depth perception?
Shout out Pete Weber. Who do you think you are? I am.
I remember Danny used to golf with like those kind of glasses on, and he would be like, he would miss a putt and be like, "Dang it, I was wearing my glasses, so my depth perception was off." And I'm just like,
Shout out Danny Worth.
oh, okay. Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the Gimme That podcast. My name is Grant Stemler, and today we have a special version of the Gimme That podcast. We're doing brunch with lo-fi beats.
Ooh.
Joined alongside me, we have Jeremy Taché, the first official guest of the Gimme That podcast. He has been kind enough to host the podcast in his backyard.
Yeah, with all the construction that gets right on cue. If you hear some random buzzing in the background, it's because I live next to a massive condo that's being built right next to me to belittle the tiny home that I have right next to it.
Hey, you have a lovely Florida home, sir.
Thank you. I love my lovely Florida home. I love it here. Shout out Fort Lauderdale.
Shout out
954.
Fort Lauderdale.
Brum, brum, brum.
So, this is a very exciting episode because this is the first time that we have moved out of the normal podcast studio. We are going mobile with the setup. This is actually kind of the hope for future podcasts. We'd love to come to the guests and hopefully have some very cool experiences, make each podcast unique in its own way. But very excited to have a long time and very special friend of mine, Jeremy Taché. Jeremy is my longest friend.
We are longest friends.
We are longest friends. I have known him and been friends with him longer than I haven't, which is a cool thing to say.
I love that.
And so this is fun for us. We're actually, if you're not watching the video feed, we are enjoying a little mimosa brunch on this beautiful Florida afternoon. And
by mimosa brunch, you mean just mimosas.
Just mimosas.
There's no food here.
There's no sustenance, so this could get a little interesting later in the podcast. And
we've already had 2.5 mimosas before we started.
That is true. Take the edge off a little bit. This was something that was very special to us, though. Ever since we've been out of college, we've kind of started a brunch mafia, which we'll get into a little bit later. Sounds a lot more intimidating than it is. Very exclusive, though. Very exclusive brunch mafia.
It sounds so ridiculous to say, like, this is something that's been important to us since college. We started a brunch mafia. Give me that.
Yes. But without further ado, I'm going to let Jeremy Taché take the reins a little bit. Jeremy, I want you to just give a little introduction to the listeners. Some who may already know you, some probably don't. But a little background, and then I'll ask you a couple more questions about what you got going on lately.
Sweet. Hello, Gimmies. I'm Jeremy. For, for those of you who don't know me, I am a sports media member, is how I would describe myself. In that I do a lot of different things within sports media, but most recently I was hired by Fox Sports Florida as their new digital host and reporter. So I cover the Miami Heat, the Miami Marlins, the Florida Panthers, and I do that all on digital platforms. So probably by the time this is released, I will have released my first episodes of a couple of new little projects that we have going on. That we'll be launching to cover the Heat mostly here at the beginning. And then, as we get into the summer, it'll be Marlins baseball and more Panther hockey. And let's do that hockey.
Yeah?
Let's do that hockey.
Is that what they're saying these days?
That's what they're saying. Down here in Florida?
We do the hockey?
What are we saying down here in Florida? You want to know what they're saying in Florida?
I want to know what they're saying.
They're saying, let's do that hockey.
I do the hockey.
Let's do that hockey.
Okay.
I do that hockey. You do that hockey. We do that hockey. He, she, we do that hockey.
Hey, give me that hockey.
The study of hockology.
It's a good Wumbo reference.
Yeah,
but
I had to try. It didn't work.
Jeremy, why don't you give us a little bit of background of how you got to where you are right now with Fox Sports, kind of how you started this sports broadcast production journey. What fuels your fire, man?
What fuels my fire?
Yeah.
I love telling stories. That's really one of my very favorite things in the world, has always been telling stories. And so when I was a kid, as you know, Grant, as we are longest friends,
We are.
I really loved performing. I did musical theater. You may even later in this podcast find out more about some of the stuff that we were doing early on in high school. But loved playing music, loved performing in musical theater, and then I also played some baseball. And so my thought process when I realized, Jeremy, you're not going to be a Major League Baseball player, you're 5'9", 150 pounds and Jewish, I realized,
Those don't fit the criteria.
Ordinarily, those are not, all three of those things are not normally, it's rare that you get one of them, let alone all three in a Major League Baseball player. And so when I realized that was going to happen, I was like, okay, what am I going to do? And so in high school, I joined the newspaper staff, loved telling stories, became our sports editor, realized that it was the perfect way to sort of combine my passions of performing and also sports. And so went to UCF, Go Knights, Charge On, went there for 4 years, studied up on broadcast journalism, and, ended up graduating, getting a job down here at WSVN in Miami, where I worked for just over 3 years as a sports producer, and just a few months ago moved out here to Fort Lauderdale, and then lucky enough ended up landing this job as the digital host and reporter for the South Florida area for Fox Sports Florida. So it was a fun little journey to get to this point so far. I've had so much fun covering all the different teams down here, and just sort of like, I get paid to watch sports. It's crazy. Like it's really a dream come true. And I'm just I don't want to be like I'm so blessed, but I feel really blessed.
Too blessed
like
to be stressed, man.
I feel pretty amazing right now. I live in this really wonderful home with my beautiful girlfriend and intelligent and wonderful girlfriend. And so I'm out here in Fort Lauderdale. I'm working for Fox Sports Florida, and I mean, come on, we're sitting here on a Sunday afternoon drinking mimosas, recording a podcast. Life's pretty good.
It's pretty good. Would you say that of the sports that you do cover and of the teams that you have a special attachment to one of them, or just prefer covering one sport over the other?
Mm-hmm. So the funny part of that is I am, like, as you know, I'm a baseball guy. I love covering the Marlins. I've covered the Marlins more in depth over the last few years than I've covered anybody else. Because I also have a separate podcast called Swings and Mishes with Craig Mish, where we have covered the Marlins.
Shout out Swings and Mishes.
Yeah, shout out Swings and Mishes. Over the last few years, we've covered them a little more in depth, and so I love covering the Marlins. But weirdly, I'm like a bigger Miami Heat fan than I am of any other team, arguably other than UCF football.
It's all about the culture, man.
I think it's just because, man, we were kids. We were in elementary school or middle school when Dwayne Wade was winning championships. And I know you were a Michigan guy, so you were probably rooting for the Pistons.
I was down here.
Oh, you were down here.
I was down here
point.
for the first one.
Okay.
But yes.
But still, there was a little bit of a tie. But, Dwayne Wade entered our lives when we were little. And then in high school, we're all hanging out watching the Heat go to the finals. It's like
Big three, baby.
Yeah, some of my favorite memories with, like, my best friends in high school are watching some of those games. So it's hard not to have kind of a special place in your heart for that franchise. And to now be covering them in, like, a pretty hands-on way is, like, it's surreal. It's really, like, I was thinking about it that, like, tomorrow I just have to watch the game, and then my job on Monday morning will be to wake up and talk about the game. And it's like, I can't believe that's happening, considering that's what I'd be wanting to do anyway. So
you think
I feel really lucky.
Your like child Jeremy would be proud of adult Jeremy?
Yeah, I think child Jeremy would probably not believe that adult Jeremy was doing this. And not that it's like, this is not like the end goal, this is not the end, or this is not like I really feel bad because it kind of, it's this really surreal thing where this job is very much a dream come true, but I also, like, I constantly feel like I'm, like, almost bragging when I'm talking about the things that I love about it and how lucky I feel and all of that, and I really don't want it to be anything like that. I am so fortunate in so many ways that I won't get into on this podcast because this is supposed to be a fun podcast, but I'm so fortunate in so many ways to have ended up in the position that I'm in, thanks to the support of family and friends and landing on the right desks at the right time for a number of different roles that I've had. But yeah, to be here at 25 covering, the teams I grew up watching it's pretty fun. So
dang, man. Well, Jeremy, we are happy to have you on the podcast. We are so happy that you're here, that you are
thanks, buddy.
Sipping on a mimosa, you're looking comfortable.
I am comfortable.
And you look happy.
It's because you're here.
Speaking of friends, I want to try ringing up Johnny Contini.
Yes.
You Gimmies know Johnny Muscles. He is a Gimme That podcast regular. He's out of town, and he might not actually pick up because he's on vacation. But we're going to see if we can get him in because Johnny, Jeremy, and I have a special bond. I mentioned it before, the Brunch Mafia. But it doesn't feel right talking about all the details of what the Brunch Mafia entails unless we can have all three members of the Brunch Mafia.
Totally agreed.
So we're going to try to phone him in right now. Let's see if he picks up.
The anticipation is killing me.
I know. What is he doing?
If it gets to 4 rings,
Well, we can leave him voicemail off here too. He gets one chance.
I like the idea of leaving a voicemail.
Oh, what? Well, also the listeners can hear his voicemail for the
What
first
a
time.
jerk.
I think he's like super polite on it.
Hi, this is Johnny Contini.
Boo.
I'm currently unavailable at the moment, but if you please leave a detailed message,
I
I'll
won't.
get back to you right away. Thank you and have a great day.
Oh, I'll leave a lot of detail.
Right away, detailed. Johnny Contini, you were on the podcast. What's up? Give me that podcast. You missed your chance to be live on air with Jeremy Taché.
Yeah, and so that we can give you the detail that you so eloquently asked for in your voicemail, just so you can understand and set the scene a little bit. We are sitting outside in my backyard. You are missing that opportunity. To my left, Grant's right, is a camera. Beyond that is a home in which they are doing some construction and some painting on. To my right is my home. Just painting the picture for you.
Very detailed.
Just being detailed, making sure that this works out. But the biggest part that is disappointing to me, Johnny, is that we wanted to talk about the Brunch Mafia, and now you're going to have to be excluded from that. So when you listen to this podcast, and it's going to be kind of strange for you as we're sort of talking in the present tense, but this will be the past tense, but it's the present tense for you as you're listening to the voicemail. So I'm confusing myself. But whenever you listen to this, just know you missed out on a huge opportunity. And we're...
I hung up.
I like ending it on and we're womp 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 womp.
Yes. All right,
It's perfect.
back to our lo-fi beats.
Let's do it.
Also, the best part about these lo-fi beats, the viewers you won't be able to see, but it's just Homer Simpson, like half asleep at the wheel, just with this really nice smile on. He's just kind of bopping in the car. It's really
great.
good. All right. Well, we won't have Johnny Contini, Johnny Muscles today, but Brunch Mafia,
Brunch Mafia.
a collective.
The Bellini boys, if you will.
Actually, so if we were a business, it would be Brunch. It would be Brunch Mafia LLC, but we would have a DBA as the Bellini boys.
It's exactly accurate. Yes.
Yes. Maybe we need to go file
Maybe we
right
should,
now
yeah.
before someone takes that. But that is really how Jeremy and Johnny sparked their friendship. We decided to get brunch. This was a couple years back, and we went to Louis Bossi's on Las Olas. And I think it really started off on a high note when we ordered the bottomless mimosas, and the server said that someone had left the like the pitchers of orange juice and mimosa. I guess they were letting them chill, but they put them in the freezer instead of the refrigerator. So we had mimosa slushies, and
And it was a joy.
may I tell you, it was wonderful.
It was wonderful.
Because this was also like, I think it was summertime. It was hot, and I don't know, man. There's something about just,
hit the spot.
it really did. It really, really did. Honestly, if you can request that at any brunch,
You can't
Place you go-
request that anywhere. There's no way
that'd be amazing.
that you could request a slushy mimosa.
It was fantastic. And you know, over time, as we kept, you know, ordering more, it became normal, and it was still good, but that's really what kind of started Brunch Mafia. We were just saying that, you know, boys who brunch is an interesting concept. I think everyone would say they like brunch.
Love
Some
a
would say they
brunch.
love brunch, but you know, I think at least the general population would say we like brunch. We don't have issues with brunch.
There's something about this that's hilarious.
And just the three of us, I think we happen to really love brunch.
Really love
There was
brunch.
something also, like, we lived near Las Olas, so we would just walk to brunch and then walk home, or
And the camaraderie of it. Like, if you don't mind me interjecting on,
Please do.
on this point, so for me, as someone who was living at that time, I was living with my family. I was living in suburbia. And so to drive out here on a Saturday morning and hang out with you guys and walk over to brunch and walk back and just hang out for the day, go by the pool, whatever it might be. In a large way, like in a time where I just graduated, was trying to figure life out in a lot of ways, like it became, like our Brunch Mafia thing, became a constant.
So it was a ritual of sorts.
It became a ritual where it was like every few weeks or a month or whatever, we would do something like that. And in a large way, like that was something to sort of look forward to when, you know, the job wasn't going well or anything else. And so like
when life gets you down,
you just go to brunch.
Go to brunch.
But I think that like when we decided to go, I remember because I had met Johnny a few times before that, and Johnny and I were already becoming friends. Like I think we became pretty fast friends.
Yeah.
We were already becoming friends, and then I think it was you who suggested like, hey, I think it might have even been that you guys were just going to go to brunch and you invited me. And so I showed up not knowing at all what to expect, and then we're hit with frozen slushy mimosas, and it's like, all right, this day's gonna get away from us.
Yes.
But that did feel like such a bonding moment to get to kind of spend with you and with Johnny, and it did create like, okay, here's the thing that the three of us do together.
Yeah, we kind of cherished it. I think more
Yeah.
than your average three people
Yeah.
cherish brunch.
I think that's more than fair to say is that normally, and maybe I'm wrong, but normally when three people go to brunch together consistently, they don't call it the Brunch Mafia and then have a nickname for the Brunch Mafia in the Bellini Boys, which doesn't even really make sense because we've never had Bellinis.
Yeah,
while at
we're not
brunch.
Bellini people, but I
John
think
Bellini.
we liked John Bellion, a.k.a. John Bellini, a.k.a. Bellini Boys.
Accurate.
Boom. Yeah, honestly, it was great times. I'm looking forward to getting back to that.
Me too. in a hopefully near future. I will say,
I mean, this was a chance to really have the mafia all together.
and we'll make it happen. We'll make it
will.
happen on this podcast. But I will say that a take on brunch, if you don't mind.
It better be a hot one.
To me personally, Jeremy, brunch, best possible meal. Period. End of discussion. Breakfast foods.
Are we talking about
It's
as far as the cuisine or the
it's
just experience?
all of it. All of
Okay,
it.
then
If you encompass not only the experience of a brunch, which you're going out of your way. If you don't go into brunch with the mentality of I am going to dominate this brunch, we as a group are going to take full advantage of the ambiance,
Oh yeah.
of the bottomless mimosas, of the special selections on the menu, the crab cake ragu or whatever. I don't
crab
remember
cake
what we had.
Benedict.
Crab cake Benedict.
Ragu.
Ragu. I'm trying to say fancy words. If you don't take full advantage of brunch, you're not doing it right.
The thing about brunch is, I think you can brunch in so many different ways.
So it's a versatile meal.
It's a very
It's versatile. You
meal.
could brunch for dinner. We've brunched for dinner.
we
have.
my gosh. We did brunch for dinner.
You can brunch for dinner.
Wow, we had a brunch dinner. I'm sorry we've said brunch dinner probably way too many times, and
Brinner.
well, that could be breakfast for dinner too.
Well, shit.
Deckfist. But what I was getting at is it's so versatile in the sense that like I've brunched just with my wife, and it's great.
Yeah.
I've brunched with the brunch mafia, and that's wonderful. I've brunched in a big group,
groups.
and that's great, especially on like a bachelor party.
Mm-hmm.
10 mimosas later,
Mm-hmm.
things get weird.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
saying. And then I've brunched just with like, a more like even just a smaller intimate group of like a double date. And there's
Yep.
just like all these different types of brunches, and it's wonderful.
Well, and to me, and maybe this is the hottest take of all, but breakfast food is better than any other food.
I saw you tweet about this recently.
I believe that breakfast food is better than any other food. I think that if
Like
you
a good
had to,
savory breakfast
if
meal.
if I had to eliminate, and I think that's difficult because obviously there are a lot more flavors that encompass traditional lunches and dinners. But to me, peak breakfast food in particular, better than any other peak food. And that's just me. I prefer a really, really great decadent breakfast to like a steak dinner.
Yeah,
That's me.
I think there's something about that first meal of the day.
Yeah.
You've gone a long time without eating. You're excited.
You're ready for it.
And if it's on point, then it's.
And I'll have that food. You can have it. You can have it any time of day. I think we need to normalize eating breakfast foods for dinner. We need to normalize that, and maybe the Gimme That podcast is the place to do it.
I'm here for it. Gimme's.
Tweet at me in particular.
We're gonna take some polls. We want to know thoughts on brunch, thoughts on destigmatizing the foods.
We gotta break these barriers.
We're gonna break these brunch barriers.
This is the glass ceiling that you and I need to shatter.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Can we talk about the ear sweat?
Let's talk about the ear sweat. It's not fun.
I'm used to recording in the studio, air conditioned 74 degrees. This is probably a humid 85, and with the headphones on, we're getting some ear sweat.
I hope that you all appreciate the sacrifices that your wonderful host Grant Stemler is willing to make for you to produce content.
Do it for the gimmies.
All for the gimmies.
Let's pump these lo-fis up.
Give me
Come
that.
on.
Give me that.
Final take on brunch.
Are you asking me for one, or are you giving your own?
I'm giving one.
Ooh, spicy.
Also, what's spicy is this lo-fi beat right now.
Yeah, I'm digging it.
Honestly, okay.
It's a vibe.
All right, back to the take. Is the correct way to do a mimosa with just a splash of orange juice so that it's just for the taste and just for a little bit of color? Or are you kind of like a half champagne, half OJ?
The appropriate proportions. I'm going to try that again. You're going to leave that in, but I'm going to try it again. Okay. The appropriate proportions of a great mimosa. 90% champagne. 9% orange juice. 1% love. That's what I deserved.
1% love.
1% love.
Can you tell me how you put love in a mimosa?
Have you ever had a really great server at a brunch establishment that you can tell is enjoying the fact that you're enjoying your brunch experience?
Okay.
Right?
I get that. Like the server that is like really good at refilling your mimosa.
Yeah. And wants you to dominate that brunch the
Okay.
way I just talked about before.
All right. I'm sorry for the wah-wah.
Yeah. I deserved a laugh. I deserved a ba-dum-tsh. I deserved a I deserved all of it.
You might have even deserved a.
What up?
All right. We're done with brunch.
We're done with brunch.
For the listeners, Jeremy Taché is not only a sports aficionado.
That's the right word. I saw your brain search for that word. I watched it
I was
happen.
about to say like aficionado. I didn't know what.
I watched your brain. It was almost like your brain was like going through files, searching for the word. In just the span of not even a second. It was great.
All right, aficionado.
Okay.
He is big time. Repeat myself. Big time into
time.
music.
Big time.
And we were talking about a couple artists he's been listening to. Jeremy, I guess as a backstory, why don't you tell the listeners kind of like since the start of COVID, what you've been doing with artists and how you've been choosing to listen to them.
Yeah, so it's actually turned into something that I think I'm probably just going to do for the rest of my life, which is like kind of cool. At the beginning of COVID, when I didn't, nobody was going to the gym, nobody's doing anything, I was trying to figure out a way to not only entertain myself in this, square radius of my neighborhood, but also, get a decent little workout in. And so I would go on these really long walks and I would listen to albums front to end. And so about a month into doing that, I decided that I was going to take specific artists and listen to their entire catalog chronologically. For a lot of modern artists, that's not a big deal. That's 2 or 3 albums. But I think in I want to say it was like June or July, I decided to do it with the Beatles, which was obviously quite the endeavor. It was like 11 albums or so. Wow. Somewhere 11 or 13 albums, something like that.
How long did that take?
It only took me a few weeks.
Wow.
Because I was really into it. So now since then, I did it with the Beatles. I did it with Bleachers, which is only a couple of albums. I did it with Fun. I did it with Vampire Weekend recently, which was a joy. God, really terrific stuff. I just finished doing it with Bruce Springsteen, and now I actually just a few days ago decided to start this endeavor with Taylor Swift.
How did you go from Bruce Springsteen to Taylor Swift?
So I'll tell you exactly how I went from Bruce Springsteen to Taylor Swift. When Folklore came out, there was an article from Vulture.com that said Taylor Swift is this generation's Bruce Springsteen.
Ew.
Which, obviously, I was not a huge fan of that, as I am for a 25-year-old male, just about as big of a Bruce Springsteen fan as you can find. Yet, when I read the article, I understood the point they were trying to make about the songwriting style.
Okay.
And the evolution of the artist. And so, I said, okay. And I like a little T-Swizzle.
I mean,
I'll take some T-Swizzle in my
classic
life.
T-Swizzle.
I'll tell you.
Definitely.
Folklore, it's a terrific album. It is. I love it.
Okay.
I love it. Personally. Me. You don't have to love it. I love it. And so, I decided it wasn't a super conscious choice, but I think what actually happened is that I remembered that Taylor Swift is going to be releasing all of this music again sometime soon, which I don't know if everybody knows this story, but essentially Scooter Braun, who was her agent for a while, bought her songbook, and so now he owns the rights to all of her song recordings. So she doesn't make, most artists don't make money off of like the song recording. They make money as the songwriter a lot of the time, right? The songwriter is where you make most of the money, but you make a lot of money off of streaming.
Sure.
Through, your record company.
So this guy owns all that now?
And so Scooter Braun is he's a character. He was Bieber's agent for a while, whatever. And so he owns her songbook essentially. in terms of the sound recordings. And so what Taylor Swift is presently doing is re-recording all of her music, and she's going to release it on her own. And the song's almost identical is the plan. She's trying to re-record every song she's ever made so that way he doesn't make any money, she makes all the money.
You know
which
what?
is such a boss move.
I actually saw this.
Yeah.
And I was kind of re-excited.
Yeah.
Because old Taylor Swift is my...
Yeah, that's your sweet spot.
So what I'm actually most curious about is those older albums where
Like,
you can
does she tweak it?
Right, because she has that like younger sound. I mean,
It's interesting.
She
So
was
she
freaking 16
she
years
released
old.
one song. She's released Love Story so far.
Does
and
it sound older?
It sounds almost exactly the same. But what's interesting is like back in the day when she was first breaking into music, she was doing the whole "I'm a country star" thing because that was the way for her to get into music. And so, they always threw a little bit of twang here and there on a couple of lines and things like that.
Right.
At least on Love Story, that wasn't there. Not that it was there that much to begin with, but her voice did sound a little different. And so my hope is just that all of these recordings are like, okay, we're going to make these songs almost identically the same, but I'm just going to sing them like they're pop songs as opposed to country songs, which would be perfect for all of us who really loved her music but aren't necessarily huge country music fans.
Well, you know what song kind of had a country sound to it, but I really liked it the way that it was Mean.
Oh,
because they had
it's a
like
good
the
song.
mandolin on there and all that
that's a
stuff.
different thing.
And that wasn't totally like she wasn't trying to be
wasn't
country
forced.
there, but there
Yeah.
was influence, and I actually really liked that. I didn't really
It's
like
when it's forced on like
Tim McGraw
although
or
Tim McGraw's a really good song.
it is, but
It's the way
actually
that
you know
they
what
had
that
her
one's
sing it.
that one's not
It's the way that they had her sing a lot of the stuff. So, as I've been doing all of these re-listens of these artists, I also am very obnoxiously researching all of their background before I'm listening to any given album. So I'm going and I'm
so you're getting the narrative.
yeah, I'm figuring out, okay, what happened. Number one, so like for Taylor, before the first album, who are you? Where'd you come from? How'd you end up doing this? When did you realize that you wanted to be a songwriter? Like I read all these like interviews and stuff. It's a waste of my time, and yet I really love finding out all of this stuff. And so, I basically, young girl who's 12, 13 years old, living in Pennsylvania. Her dad was working as a stockbroker at Merrill Lynch.
Wow.
And, was making enough that when he realized his daughter was super, super talented and she'd taken some singing lessons and stuff in New York because they were in Pennsylvania, he was like, we're relocating the family to Nashville and you're going to try to do this. And so that's what happened. And so she met with literally one producer and one songwriter who helped her make that whole first record. And my bet is because they were in Nashville and they were country people and she loved country music because of the way that women wrote songs in country music, it was all right, hey, add your twang, that's how you get into this thing, whatever, even though it didn't come naturally. And so now to look back on that, country was just the way for her to get in. No women were writing songs in the style of Taylor Swift at that time that weren't country artists.
And I would even say that people that were listening to Taylor, especially people that listen to country music, weren't even calling her music country music.
No, not even.
She was just with the
people.
country. She was just with the country label.
Yeah, it was it was country music, but it was so clear that she was a pop artist that was just stuck in country. And so
did she belong at the CMAs?
yes, because she made country music. Like the reality is
Technically, yeah,
the
I
music
guess,
that
yeah.
she made was it had the fiddle and the mandolin and all of those things there in the background, and these were country songs, but I think it was just the way for her to sort of get in. I don't know that she ever was really truly a country artist or just someone who grew up and saw a Faith Hill documentary, realized that was really the space for her to be able to write the music that she wanted to write and sort of entered it and then evolved from there. But all that being said, I'm listening to her music now. Man, Taylor Swift is one of the great songwriters, maybe of all time, but certainly of our time. Here's a real thing that happened.
Does she write all of her songs?
Yeah, so, and this is because I was intrigued, right? Because I was like, sure, she writes her songs.
Because she could write
right?
a word and then,
And then-
technically have her name on the
and
thing
that happens
and stuff.
constantly.
For sure.
Right?
I mean, it's rare that you find someone that actually writes.
At this point,
their music.
at this point in music, it's very rare that
very
you
rare.
find artists, especially in the pop world, that actually are the sole writer on a song. So there's a lot of pop artists that have like 2 or 3 songwriters that they'll work with. So for example, on this most recent Taylor Swift record, all of her songs are with Aaron Dessner or Jack Antonoff. So Aaron Dessner of The National, and then Jack Antonoff of Bleachers, and people who don't know Bleachers, he was the guitarist in the band Fun. And so she did that whole record with them. She did not write a song. I think she wrote maybe 2 songs alone, but I think those songs she actually wrote with her boyfriend.
She's dating someone?
Yeah, she's dating some guy. I forget who he is. I should know that as I'm spatting out all this,
it's all
this
ruined.
information. It's all ruined. It lost my credibility. But it's so interesting that, like, from the very beginning, these songs were so well constructed. And I think what really legitimately got me the other day, and this is going to sound, you're going to laugh. Like, or maybe you're not. Now maybe I'm setting it up on a podcast for people to laugh, and they're not going to laugh either. But I was taking a walk the other day.
I got the button ready for you.
I'm listening to the album Fearless, which is Taylor Swift's second record. And the third song on that record is Love Story, which we all know was her first song that went from, oh, you're a, this, cute little blonde girl that does country to
nuts.
You're a superstar.
Right.
Like, immediately. Like, that was the song, and then compounded with You Belong With Me.
Right.
Where it was just like, oh, okay.
In the music videos too, she was taking over. Yeah.
She took over the world with those songs. And so I'm listening to Love Story, which on its own very much is just a pop song. Like it's a pop song. It's not a country song. It's
right.
the music in the background, the fiddles, the mandolins, all of those things are what make it sound like a country song. But you could have just about any artist cover that song.
Well, it happened.
And it happened constantly.
Forever the Sickest Kids.
Mm-hmm. And Forever the Sickest Kids nailed it.
Yeah.
It was great. And so what I found myself doing, because I had just finished the Springsteen re-listen, is I am listening to Love Story, and I'm thinking to myself, what if Bruce Springsteen had just written this song from a male perspective at 25 years old and thrown it on the album Born to Run? And I literally
rock and roll.
Literally started crying. I'm not kidding. Laugh at me. Do it. I literally started, like, tearing up because I was thinking, okay, if that mandolin was a saxophone and that, fiddle was a string instrument.
Jeremy Taché is a sucker for a good saxophone.
I'm a sucker.
Any horn?
If you put a horn in a song, I'm going to listen to it. And if you put a gospel choir in a song, forget about it. I'm there. It's done. If you put more than 2 harmonies on a record, it's one of my favorite records immediately. But I'm listening to Love Story and I'm realizing it was just constructed so well, lyrically, musically, it was such a tight song. Like there's not any space. There's no fat. It's such a wonderfully constructed song. And she was 19 years old when she wrote it. And that's the part that kind of got to me where I was like, oh, we now, like people talk about Taylor Swift now, like, oh, she's a really great songwriter now. Like people have that respect. She's been doing it for a long time, whatever. But we did not talk about her that way at all when she was young, and we were young. We were younger than she was. But I think like there should be a greater level of respect for her game at the beginning than I think there is. Because if those songs were just recorded by the artists that we know and love and respect as the great artists of all time, and they were just their songs, we would talk about them in that same light. Love Story is like, and this sounds insane coming from me, Love Story is, it would have been, if you had re-recorded Love Story as a Bruce Springsteen song and put it on Born to Run, it would not have been the worst song. In fact, it might have been up there with some of the great Born to Run, Thunder Road, Jungle. And like, it's a great song because, I mean, it sounds lame, but it like references Shakespeare and it sets up the story. No, because it seems dumb and we laugh at it because it was a 19-year-old girl. But if it was a 26-year-old guy who was trying to reference some sort of, old Shakespearean whatever and created this story, we might really love it. That's all I'm saying. I'm just saying. I'm not saying, I'm just saying.
Honestly, I
just rambled a lot, didn't I?
I mean, I think the Gimmes.
If the Gimmes are still listening, thank you.
Yeah, shout out Gimmies if you're still here at this point in the podcast, because we're actually going a little over, but screw it. We're
Why not?
going.
We're here.
We're here. We're brunching. We hope you are too.
Yeah.
The thing about, so I actually, I don't know if I'm 100% there with what you said, but I do see a lot of truths in what you said. And I just think that, like, those songs at the time that she was writing, they actually probably hit me like more as a whatever,
As a teenager.
as a 13, 14-year-old. Then if I
Yeah.
heard him for the first time now, I'd be like, whatever. Like, it doesn't
Right.
relate to me. But also, like, her whole, at the time that I thought she was her best, she really, I think, fit the music that she was singing.
Yes.
In the sense of, like, she probably always kind of, like, looked younger than she even was. Not that she looked really
but
old
she
or
did.
anything,
Yeah,
but,
no, she looked
you know, she kind of played off the, you know, kind of like bubbly personality and, you know, just very kind and energetic and, you know, just very youthful.
Yeah.
And I think as she started to go into more of the pop, I mean, there was a moment where I was like, banger. Like,
Yeah.
I Knew You Were Trouble.
Oh.
Is that what the song's called?
I knew you were trouble when you walked in. Yeah.
But bop.
Here's what I'll tell you. Grant.
Tell me.
You clearly are not a folklore stan, or even, what is it, Evermore? I think that's the
Neither.
other one.
I maybe listen to the whatever ones have Bon Iver because I love Bon Iver. But
Yeah.
then other than that, I don't really listen. So
So here's
I
what I'm
can't
going to tell you to
actually
do.
say they're
No,
bad.
so here's what I'm going to tell you to do. Here's what I'm going to tell you to do with those two records. Take your betrothed on a rainy Sunday afternoon, nestle up with a bottle of wine, and throw on folklore. 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a rainy Sunday. Just a rainy Sunday afternoon.
Is this your like idea of the perfect date?
No, this is just something you should do to
Like
treat
Miss
yourself.
Congeniality, what's
No.
your perfect date? And you're
No.
like, rainy Sunday,
Rainy Sunday afternoon.
4 p.m.
4 p.m. Bottle of cheap red wine from Trader Joe's. But I will say, yeah, take the lovely Naomi and just spend an hour listening to a record that will just soothe you. And I'm not here trying to say that Taylor Swift is like, you know, she's not my favorite
She's not the
artist.
GOAT.
She's not the GOAT. But I think that, like, I think generally she gets a lot of acclaim, but less respect from the average everyday person in terms of her actual talent than she should get. In particular, when we go back to the stuff that she was writing from ages like 16 to 20 that we all looked at as like, oh, cute, you know, 16-year-old girl writing a love song. But like looking at what her ability was, because I'm sitting here going, she wrote all those songs, Tim McGraw, Teardrops on My Guitar, all that stuff that she wrote at the beginning. What was Your Song? Or no, not Your Song, Our Song.
Our Song.
Our Song. All of that's
Great song.
She wrote as a freshman in high school. It's crazy to think that somebody like that could write things that could relate to so many people, because all the teenagers listening were like, yeah, that's me. And all the adults, I go back and I listen, I'm like, yeah, that's what I felt like when I was 14. Like, that's what I felt like. That's what I felt like when I was 15.
Yeah.
You know? And she did it at 18 or 17. It's impressive. I just think we
is impressive.
I just think we gotta give her some cred. Why have we talked about Taylor Swift for 25 minutes? Who knows? But here we are. Thank you so much, Grant, for having me on this podcast. Johnny and Pierce and Johnny, all three of you.
Yeah.
Whenever we get a chance, the five of us, to sit down and record one of these, I know it is going to be a true joy. I would love to have you all in this backyard with me. And to the Gimmies, and this is really the most important message of all, to the Gimmies, I love you. I respect you. I cherish you. And I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day.
What a sweet boy. What a sweet boy. All right. Well, as you know, the Gimme That podcast is brought to you by Henry and Ash Watches. Use promo code Gimme That 40.
Give me that 40.
This is my sponsor ad. Use promo code Gimme That 40 for 40% off your entire purchase. It's a great watch. I'm wearing it right now. It tells time perfectly and looks great while doing it. Also, the Gimme That podcast is sponsored by Tarpon River Brewing. Tarpon River Brewery is probably Fort Lauderdale's best local craft brewery. You got to go there right now. If you're not there right now, you got 15 minutes. Go.